interacting with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities was the issue of making a distinction between the party politics and governance. So those matters were emphasized, but that leadership is not only provided at the level of the politicians. Leadership is as well critical at the level of managers. We need decisive leaders. We need leaders that have vision. We need leaders that are determined. We need leaders that are able to persevere. Because if we listened yesterday to a number of stories, it was the issue that it was not very easy. We were not only painting a gloomy picture, a very beautiful picture about what was happening in the partnership. Leaders were also able to reflect on some of the difficulties that they experienced during this period. But because of strong leadership, because of the determined leaders, we were able to be where we are today. The other point that was emphasized, something which I also learned when they were emphasizing about Jeremy, was the issue of ecosystem, systems approach. So they emphasized a lot, and even Kubeshni, they were talking about those things, extracting from the discussions that were happening. The other point that was raised very sharply was the issue of stability in our institutions. Because we may try all, if our institutions are not stable, it is very unlikely that we will be able to see benefits. So hence the issue of stability in our institutions, matching it with the issue of strong leadership, will be the medicine in resolving some of the matters that are confronting municipalities. And I remember quite vividly when we were handling issues in Port St. John's. We used in the PC meeting to always make that example, that were it not for the strong leadership in that municipality, maybe Port St. John's could have ended up losing this partnership. Because at certain instances, we were about to say, let's take it out of Port St. John's and look for another municipality. It was not only Port St. John's, there were other municipalities like Ndlambe, local municipality. We were struggling at certain moments to get cooperation. And Nalapo, we nearly said, this program must get out of Ndlambe local municipality. But because of determined leadership and strong leadership in those municipalities, they pleaded with us that let's give them a chance. They are going to sort out the issues that are confronting those municipalities. So I'm emphasizing the point of stability in our institutions, but at the same time, that requires strong leadership for us to be able to do that. The other point that was emphasized was building internal capacity in our institutions. And at times we undermine the strength, the capacity that we have in the institutions, the people that we have in those institutions. If they are not given opportunity to display what they have, we are likely to lose a lot. And I think that point was emphasized kakhulu ngumama uCingo when she was opening on behalf of the provincial chairperson. And as a result, when people were given opportunity, we were able to hear from them yesterday when they were indicating that as a result of the opportunity that they have been given, they were now able to deal with a number of issues which earlier on they could not do. Now, the other point that was raised was the issue of ensuring that we leverage on this program, we leverage on the partnerships that we have created. And we do not just only leverage on that, but we also try by all means to replicate the lessons that we have learned out of this partnership. And I think, as Mr. Futwa was saying when he was presenting, that even though the program has not yet reached the stage where we could say it is now reached the stage where it is at is a complete pilot now, but we're able to pick up some of the good lessons from the program, and such programs being replicated in other municipalities. The other point that was emphasized by many speakers who were speaking here was the issue of enhancing the participation of our communities in the municipal affairs. And when I was listening, I could relate that with what Usonwaba used to say in many platforms, the emphasis on both the invited and invented spaces in public participation. That the focus should not only be on the formalized in terms of government structures, but we must know that in communities, there are those organic structures that have been established by our communities. And if we want to have strong local government, we must ensure that we extend our hand and find ways to cooperate and work with the invented spaces in our communities. The other point that was raised was the issue of integration of the programs. So it was indicated that this program should not be seen as an isolated program in the municipality. It must help, it must find its expression, and it must also assist in other programs that are developed by the municipalities. And again, I'm not biased to Port St. John's. I remember when we were talking about this, there was this drive in the province to have a city that we should be developing. And when we visited, I think, the city of Fredericton, and when we were taken through on the asset management strategies, and we're saying this could help a lot to make that vision and dream of having a city along that coast, it could make it a reality. So which means the knowledge that has been gained out of this exercise must help to enhance other programs that are happening. And I think, again, I think it was Futwa who made mention of number of these programs that are being initiated by SALGA, even the Karoo programs, the small town regenerations, and all these programs. These must not be seen in isolation from each other, but we must find a way of integrating as programs and institutionalize them. So again, it happens with the policies. We're saying these policies that people have learned from as a as partner municipalities. We must find a synergy in the policies. We must find a way that we integrate as policies into policies of the municipality. The other point was the issue of adapting to changing circumstances. If we want to see things improving in our institutions, we must ensure that we don't resist a change, because by exposure to this program, people acknowledged the fact that there were a number of things that they had to change from how they've been doing things in their institutions. And for that to happen, people need to adapt to the changing circumstances. The changing environment about operator kui. The second last point, Chair, was the issue of acknowledging and accepting the issue of digital transformation. That especially with the outbreak of the pandemic, it has shown us that we are still very far from the issue of the 4IR. And at the same time, drawing positive lessons out of it, it became clear that the issue of digital transformation could make our lives much more easier, such that now we are even able to connect with our colleagues in Canada. And we are utilizing the issue of the digital transformation. Even within the country, those who are unable to be here physically, but they are able to make meaningful contribution to this conference, even though they are not with us here in the conference venue. So we should do that, embrace the digital transformation even in our institutions, and see how we could utilize it for the betterment of the lives of our people and for the efficiency in our institutions. I remember quite well when we were dealing with the issue of asset management, linking it with the GIS, how that could help in municipalities in improving the issue yabo, asset management. The last point, Chair, is that some municipalities were able to highlight the point that we have institutions of higher learning amongst ourselves, but we are not taking advantage of those institutions. But municipalities yesterday were beginning to reflect that out of this engagement, out of this partnership, we have now started to engage institutions of higher learning so that we can draw from their expertise, so that they are able to find space to work as well as academic institutions and see how they could assist the local government in improving the way it does its program and how it could improve on such programs. It was also emphasized by speakers when they were thanking these associations, both SALGA and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, that municipalities must take the advantage of having these associations. SALGA is an association of municipalities. So municipalities are members of this association. They should take advantage of the capacity that is residing in SALGA. And that has been demonstrated by this kind of a partnership esikuyo with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. We were trying to emphasize the point that SALGA is relevant to municipalities because SALGA is able to pool, to mobilize resources and partnerships njengokuba sikhona kule ndawo. And it is not only this partnership that SALGA has been able to mobilize. There are many other partnerships that are happening in the country as a result of the coordination and mobilization by SALGA. They are happening in other provinces. So municipalities should take that advantage. And even in other aspects, SALGA has officials who are very dedicated, who do not mind even if they are called in the middle of the night. They are always keen to assist municipalities, and we should take that as an advantage, and we should use that advantage. Lastly, as a chairperson, we're working group here, international relations, we always ask reports by municipalities on the partnerships, on the MOUs that they have. But none of these 6 municipalities are even able to write back to SALGA to say, we as Port St. John's were in partnership with the city of Fredericton, so that you are even able to outline the key issues that you are working with the city of Fredericton, so that other municipalities could see, and then if they want to have some kind of relations they would want to establish with you, they know. So we are also appealing that when we write to municipalities, the city, they must indicate the partnerships that they have. We must also find that because our reports to the National Working Group are always very thin because municipalities are not responding just to tell us what they are doing with the international world. So I think, Chair, those are the things that I was able to lift up as people were discussing yesterday. It might not be exhaustive. As I indicated, I was not going to repeat what people said, but it was just to sum up key issues that came. On a lighter note, we said this program has also even benefited Glandway relations. I saw yesterday apha lo mfana yabona ngosendilibele nelona gama lakhe uMashana. Ndibone kwa i-background of i-computer yakhe uno-Rondavel pha kuye, uyabonakala uba it's one of our areas. And I hope senimnikile inxiwa pha kwezi ndawo ndiyabona. And we also have Mbulelo kweli cala. So which means this program indeed has benefited abantu. Even though at the beginning there were different understanding of what the program entails. There were different expectations. Other people were expecting this and others were expecting this. But at the end of the day, we are here now. And I think we can proudly say all of us, we know where we started and we know where we are. And with the hope, as many speakers emphasized yesterday, that we should then begin to say, where do we want to take this program to after the end of this conference today? Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Janda. You made all of us and those who were not part of the session yesterday to know what exactly were we dealing with. I won't also repeat what you've said because it's got an element of into yoba ungasikubona abantu be-bored at some point. Indeed, Honorable Janda, I must say, as politicians, sometimes we do have to bring back or to stay or to remain in the right direction. So if Amagosemva wants to take us somewhere, it's our duty to make them come back to where we are. I think I'm clear on that one. I will not get into detail. Without a waste of any time, I will call upon Jeremy to come on the stage. Remember, I said there are two that will be driving this ship. If it sinks, you will blame them, the two of them. So I will leave it to him to check who is connected and who is here. So he will be driving us until we go to tea. You can take the stage, Jeremy.
Thank you so much, Councillor van Heerden. You know, I'm tempted to do the protocol now. I feel like maybe I should do it today, but I'm not going to. But it's very nice to see you all. Councillor van Heerden, you said I look like a priest. I did because I realized my collar was under the jersey. But it gave me such a fright because you know that my grandfather was a priest on my father's side. He was Reverend Tim. And my grandmother's father was a priest. So I thought, yo, she's seeing something that I'm not seeing. Maybe I must be careful today. And the other thing that made me even more nervous was that you started to talk about or allude to the ship sinking. And it would be my responsibility if it sank. I'm going to put Kubeshni as the captain of the ship today. Because she's virtual. So no, sorry, Kubeshni, don't worry. We're going to be fine. But it made me think of English. And my mother was a teacher of English. And I think there might be one or two fellow first language English speakers in the house. Oh, okay. I'm being told I can take my mask off. Okay. Yeah, I think before I go into matters of English, I do want to just say to all of us around behavior change and what's happening with COVID, it is terrifying. So those of you that aren't wearing masks, why not? Have you been vaccinated? Or are you somehow immune? Those of us that are handing out papers, can we be extra careful because you are handing papers, you are at high risk. Please sanitize frequently, wear our masks. I really want to ask everybody to do that. And when you talk closely to someone, please do the same. And let's really know that, as our president has said, it is only now in our hands. And you can pray if you go to hospital. That's what we've got left. But I want to go back to English. You know, ships, sinking ships, partnerships. How does this English work? But I want to ask us to embrace the verb today. and think about the verb, not the noun or the adjective. Partner, partnerships, partnering is what this is about. It's an action. It's not an intent and it's not a lament. So if you've established an intergovernmental forum, districts, if you have a mayor's forum, if you've established the intergovernmental fora, the premier's coordinating forum, all of these forums we create, we always say congratulations, and the auditor is happy because you've had 4 meetings, 4 lunches have been served, they have happened. We don't do lunches anymore really because mostly they're virtual. But the practice of partnering is what we're talking about. It doesn't begin and it doesn't end. It either happens or it doesn't. So I really want to take forward what Councillor Janda's summary was highlighting. And by the way, Mayor Janda, I just think that with your notes and my facilitation, we could be amazing, hey? Because that's the most comprehensive summary I've heard. It's perfect. And I think those of you that weren't here yesterday have got the full picture of yesterday. Yeah, Betty Zandler. Okay. So we've got a great program again today. We're starting with component 3000, which is on your program, you'll see partnerships of partnerships. I love this. This is something that Sipo Gallardo came up with, that BIGM is the partnership of partnerships. So it really is a sophisticated thing. There is no app developed anywhere in the world that can do this. It's only us humans that can do this. That's the good news. So even with the smartest cities, Mayor Janda, they are not going to replace this part of what humans can do, is to relate and synthesize. So that's our theme for this morning, partnership of partnerships. We're going to start off, and I'm very pleased to welcome my new guests to my beautiful lounge. I will introduce them in a moment, but I just want to give you an overview of today. We are going to talk in this first session about a concept for partnerships, which is coming into the form of the district development model. This is the latest flavor for a function which was established with the new local government system. I'm sorry to say it like this, because I know when I was at Amatola, I was the head of what was called PIMS, which was the Planning, Implementation and Management Support System, which is like the district development model, single plan for the district. We know that we need to do this. It's hard to do, but it's in the doing that we do it. So we're going to have some great reflections from a number of people who are engaging in this space. So that's about the district development model and sustainability, and we'll infuse the lessons of the BIGM partnership of partnerships in our discussions with that. We're then going to have a tea break and then go into looking at what this means for SALGA and its role. We will have a number of panelists from different organizations who've been engaging with SALGA on this. And this will be anchored by Mr. Lance Joel, who will give some framing statements on this. But let me come to our first talk. I was going to say talk shop, but that's got a bad, our first talk show. Where we're going to have our opening comments made by Mr. Nkosinati Mthethwa from SALGA, and then we'll get some inputs from Ms. Vuyo Honono, who is the LED manager from Alfred Nzo District Municipality, Mr. Simpiwe Mnweba from Amatola District, Mr. Dume Magwalisa from Sarabartman, Ms. Zimasi Vazi, who's with the Commonwealth. I'm sorry, I can't remember the rest of the acronym, but they've been supporting in OR Tambo, and then Ms. Joanna Wallace of the Sustainable Seas Trust. The last two will be joining us virtually, as will Ms. Honono. but I don't know whether you've had a chance to greet each other yet this morning. So just to get us started and knowing that we're still connected, you don't just have to watch us here. Please just say hello to those near you with your masks on by not going any closer, observing social distancing. Just say hello. Molo mhlobo wam. This is nice to be here. It's not what we would like. We'd like to be closer. We would like to be singing a bit. But here we are. And we are learning and we are adapting to this context that we're in. Thank you. Have you greeted each other as well? Okay. Okay. Kubeshni, let's just see that can you just say good morning to us so that we know that you're there?
Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, everybody in the Eastern Cape. I hope you have an amazing day today.
Thank you, Kubeshni. And you will hear that she's greeted us here. Our Canadian colleagues are still sleeping. They will be joining us for the afternoon session when we're looking at component 2000, which is around asset management and climate resilience. A fascinating topic where we'll be having inputs from Port St. John's, Buffalo City, and Ndlambe and their partner organizations. Okay, so let me call on Mr. Mthethwa to get us started with this panel. And
Jeremy?
Yes, Kubeshni?
Sorry. Is Mr. Mthethwa joining us virtually?
He's absolutely here.
He's here. Okay. That would explain why I couldn't find him online. Very glad. Cool.
It would be alarming if he was both here and there. Okay, so we're going to stay in our seats also just to be safe, so we don't move around too much. But let's start with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeremy. And let me observe the protocol as well for all the leadership here and those who are joining us online. I have prepared some few slides to frame my thoughts on the DDM, because our responsibility as SALGA is to shape the DDM and make certain that certain modalities are included as we continue with the implementation and the development of one plans. It's not going to be long. I'm going to skip some of the slides. I think I'm going to focus only on 5 slides. I'm saying that the DDM is about planning together, budgeting together, delivering together, and sustaining our efforts. And it's what we really need to focus on moving forward. And my contribution is really in terms of 3 components. The first component is really about just recapping on the journey thus far in terms of the DDM, as well as looking at what SALGA is proposing as key catalysts that we need to focus on in shaping the implementation processes, as well as what we consider as key success factors. I'm not sure whether is it moving. I'm pressing here, but
just press harder.
Okay. Yes. Thanks. Okay. Just to recap on the journey, just to remind members, this journey started in 2019 in August when Cabinet adopted the model to really change the state machinery. And subsequent to that, we then focused on the 3 pilots which were launched. So almost by now, I think we are almost closer to 2 years of the DDM, mainly focusing on the 3 pilots. But subsequent to the launches that took place in the 3 pilots, which is OR Tambo, eThekwini, and Waterberg, the rollout started in other districts as well. And the intention of having a pilot was to make sure that we map the lessons learned for future referencing and adaptation processes. We are now in the process of all the 53 district metro spaces to finalize their one plans, which must be finalized by June 30th this year. What SALGA has done is also to develop its own conceptual framework that will amplify and frame the national perspective on how the implementation process should unfold. I think all of us will know the problem statement as to why the DDM was imperative. It was discovered that there is lack of coherence in government. The alignment across the 3 spheres of government was problematic. As a result, and the outcome is that we experience poor service delivery and uncoordinated service delivery, and there's no visible development impact. So what really the DDM is trying to do is to rebuild people's confidence in government, but that requires faster translation of plans into tangible deliverables with greater impact, because the patience of our people is dwindling. So it's important that we move faster with implementation, because the energy that we spend on planning must now be translated into direct implementation. Now, 2 weeks ago, we were in Waterberg with the minister, the UN, and other partners. And I've just highlighted some of the key strategies and plans that are in the pond. I'm sure members will remember ISRDP, Integrated Sustainable Rural Development, the URP, there was Sienza Manje, Back to Basics, Project Viability, Project Consolidate, Local Government Turnaround Strategy. And at a national level, I think we were enthused by the new growth path as a catalyst to drive economic growth and achieving 10 million jobs and so forth. We have just recently been exposed to the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. National Treasury also released a paper and strategy on economic transformation and so forth. What the members and the civic society and the private sector were raising in Waterberg is the one plan moving towards this pond. And why is it different? But I'm sure my colleagues will answer that, whether is the one plan really a game changer in terms of strengthening partnership, in terms of as accelerating delivery on the ground. Now, this is the solution that the DDM is providing, all of government working together. So we don't have a process where national and provincial government, they ignore IDPs, they ignore the spatial development frameworks. They want to implement projects without proper planning with municipalities. You find that the municipalities are not ready to provide bulk infrastructure and so forth. In some instances, ministers, they come, they make promises, they want to build a hospital, a clinic. 10 years down the line, there's no clinic, there's no hospital. The mayor, the speaker, councillors must then answer to communities as why those things have not happened. So we want to make sure that we consolidate the efforts of government under one pot, so government as a whole. But what is important here is about coming up with a new social impact that is going to include civil society and the private sector and other stakeholders to actually enhance the implementation of the DDM. Then you have what the one plan is all about. But what is important there is people development. It's good governance. That is going to then champion economic restructuring, spatial restructuring, infrastructure engineering, and service provision. Now, what SALCA is doing is say link the implementation of the DDM to sustainable development goals in terms of adaptation and localization. Now, if you look at the concept of localization with regards to the SDGs, it talks about inclusivity, it talks about localized approach, it talks about working closely with various structures of government, international institutions, private sector, and civil society. It talks about policy coherence as well as financing of frameworks. So all of these things, so if you look at the DDM, it is the same approach when it comes to DDM. It's about the people, it's about civil society, it's about all the partners available. So if you look at how is the relationship between the SDGs as well as the DDM, I think I've tried to paint that picture. But over and above that, we need to empower people and ensure that there is inclusivity and equality in the implementation of the SDGs as well as we use the DDM to further enhance the implementation processes. Now, what is SALCA advocating for? This is the SALCA's execution agenda. We're saying that the DDM must focus on 8 packages. They are not all inclusive, but we have elevated 8 packages. And what I've done here is to link the work package, the DDM strategic focus, and the SDG. So you'll see that, for example, on quality services, although focusing on those 4 key services, which is water, sanitation, solid waste, energy, and how they relate to the SDGs from a sustainability point of view. So we're saying that when we talk about water, we should not only talk about access to water, but we should talk about water demand management, water conservation, and all of those things. We talk about solid waste, it should not only be access, but it should be how we reuse, we rethink, we recycle our waste management program. So these are some of the work packages that are now included in our quest to refocus the district development model. I'm not going to go through all of them because of time. So I've mentioned all 8 of them. So you can then be able to see the relationship, the correlation between what SALGA is proposing as work packages, as well as the strategic focus, as well as the SDGs. So when we talk about, for example, disaster management, our ability to reduce disaster and to have the capacity to recover, linked to climate action, good health and well-being. But moreover, we have then proposed 3 key enablers that must find expression in terms of the DDM implementation. One is that we need to have a regulatory regime that is harmonized. For example, if you look at Gauteng city region, why don't you have harmonized bylaws? When you move from Tshwane to Joburg, you don't even see the distance, but you find that you are now expected to apply different rules in Tshwane, different rules in Joburg. Same applies to district municipalities. Why don't you harmonize your bylaws, all your regulations within the district, so that whether you are in municipal A or B, you experience same harmonized regulatory environment. So install capacity as well, we're saying that there needs to be universal norms and standards at a district level. So whether it's Chris Han, it's OR Tambo, or is King Echai in KwaZulu-Natal, you need to have minimum standards of capacity required, both in terms of skills, in terms of human resources, and in terms of budgets. And then lastly, I think there was a mention around the 4th Industrial Revolution as an anchor project, so that there is equity in terms of connectivity, whether you're in a rural area or in the urban area. Now, to conclude, Chair, we're saying that for us, DDM is about partnership for real change. And what are the cornerstones of this? One is integrated planning. We want to see the whole of government planning together, but as well as the private sector, civil society, working with government to develop this new vision that is localized. The second one is that there needs to be approval and alignment of budget. If it's not budgeted for, don't include it, because people are not going to be waiting for their aspirations to be realized when there is no budget. And then the other one is faster implementation. There is a planning fatigue in our country, so we need now to focus all our efforts on implementation, and there must be impact. And continuous monitoring is key for the success of the DDM, but we also need to insulate the DDM against government changes. The DDM cannot be a PR exercise for a minister. The DDM must be a government program, irrespective who is the minister, because we have seen many programs that have failed because they are only linked to a minister. Once there's another minister, then they ditch or abort that program and start a new one. So we cannot be in a perpetual planning mode. Sustainability and innovation, I think I've covered that. But lastly, we're saying that for the DDM to work and for the partners to be happy, we need to ensure that there's accountability. If something has not been done, there must be consequences for that. Otherwise, we are going to be developing another plan to try and fast track service delivery and make sure that we bring real change at local government level. So in closing, I'm saying that we need to answer the question, is the DDM the new game changer for integrated planning and faster implementation by government as a whole with its partners? But only time will tell. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Kosinati. I love the challenge at the end. Is this going to be the game changer? Time will tell. Well, time will tell because at some point we'll look back, but we will define whether it's a success or not. And I was so intrigued by, like, at the center of so much of what you're talking about is the ability to have a constructive relationship. And I'm intrigued by this. Is it called a single plan? I think that's a prerequisite. But what will define it ultimately, I think, is whether we actually practice what we preach. You know, I'm going to do a career limiting statement. So, Lance, I just need insurance. Is there anyone from Treasury here? Okay, please. I'm going to deny that I said it if I did. But you know, there's a strange thing that happens sometimes with Treasury, is that Treasury is always right, and the other departments are always wrong. It seems to be how we start off. So when I remember going in Treasury meetings, we would tell people why they were wrong. Your problem is silo mentality, we would say, forgetting that we were standing in the biggest silo. And I'm giving it as an example because I do it with compassion, because it's hard. It's easy to say and hard to practice. So this is what I'm so interested to hear from our panelists. in the lounge and online is how do we actually put this into practice and what have we learned? So I'm going to start with we're going to fly to Alfred Nzo and start with you, Vuyo. I know that you've got limited time, but you're in the district where Winnie Madikizela Mandela local municipality is. Part of your mission as a district is to coordinate and support. What have you learned about this role and partnering through your experience with BIGM? So let's give you the chance to give some reflections, please, Vuyo, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeremy, and greetings to everybody that's available, at this platform. I'm happy to be part of it virtual. I'm very sorry I couldn't make it. However, DDM is coming at a very opportune time for us as Alfred Nzo because we are really at a place where we are starting to put this into practice, more specifically on the agriculture.
She's just reminding us that she's virtual. I think she's about to come back. One of the things that in this virtual time I've been inviting people to be is compassionate with themselves, with technology, on how difficult it is often to manage it, with others who are trying to connect and sometimes can't. We tend to blame the person who can't connect for the bad connection. And I think we can also, while I'm talking about this, acknowledge the team at the back there who's keeping the connection live. And when it doesn't work, we all look at them and start shouting at them as if they're suddenly miracle workers. But there's a whole infrastructure which doesn't always work as we want it to. So I think while we're waiting for Vuyo to come up, can we just Betty Zandler for the tech team who've held this whole thing together over the last 6 days or 2 weeks and made it possible for us to connect in this way. So thank you very much, guys, for your excellent work. Kabeshni's, she can't clap in the old way. She claps in the BIGM way now. In fact, Councillor Mshukwana, maybe Kabeshni can get freedom of the municipality of Matatiele because she doesn't clap in any other way than the Matatiele way. Vuyo, you're back. We understand tech is hard. It's not your fault.
Yeah, no, network here is not doing very great past couple of days. But I'm not sure where you lost me, but I was actually saying that, this DDM is actually coming at a very opportune or great time for us as Alfred Nzo, because this is something that we've been talking about for quite a number of years, but it's been very much uncoordinated, especially in the agricultural sector, because our district is very well positioned, in terms of its spatial location and in terms of the favorable climatic conditions. You'll find that there is a lot of agricultural production on the ground, right? You'll find that there's Department of Agriculture who's doing something. You'll find there's the various local municipalities, there's the district, but all of this is uncoordinated. And you'll find that there is a lot of production that is getting lost in the space because the beneficiaries on the ground don't necessarily know how to arrange themselves so that their production can get out to the market. Now we're at a place where we are really working together, with the various stakeholders, in a sense that we have clarified roles. We know that we've got our agency, our development agency, who's taking the lead in terms of providing skills to the beneficiaries. We are the district municipality who's also actively involved in primary production and sort of trying to industrialize and commercialize the agricultural sector. We've got our local municipalities where we collect stock of the maize production that's happening on the ground so that we can be in a position to engage markets regarding what is available on the ground and then be able to sell in bulk. I think that's really where we are at regarding the DDM, when we're also trying to implement this in other sectors as well, in terms of trying to tap into funding opportunities, with more specifically with the Bizana local municipality. I think I would have mentioned this at our mini conference in Bizana, that we managed to get a huge chunk of funding from National Treasury through the Oh my gosh, I've lost the name of the funding now, but we've actually got funding to the tune of about 59 million rands that's assisting us in terms of shaping the manufacturing sector and basically, contributing to the construction sector, which is booming in our area as well. So those are just some of the reflections at this stage.
Thank you, Vuyo. Can I just ask you a question? You said this DDN has come at the right time.
Yes.
Because of, particularly in agriculture and construction, where a lot of uncoordinated activities are happening. Do you think it's come at the right time, or whether you are now ready to respond to what's right?
I think the stakeholders are ready to respond to what's right, because we've been sounding like a broken record. I don't mean to, give ourselves credit, but as the district, this is really what we've been trying to do for a number of years, because our role is coordination. And it's really something that we've been trying to do in our space, to coordinate the activities that are happening so that we can have impacts on the ground. So at least now we are talking the same language and it's informed by the DDM. So we can be in a position to actually implement the programs on the ground. Yeah. So it's more structured, it's more formalized. It's also beautiful that we are also all at a place where we are doing our economic recovery plans post-COVID. So there's DDM, right? There's economic recovery plans, there's the activities that everyone else has been doing. Now it's getting us to a place where we are saying, okay, guys, let's come up with programs that are going to be responsive to the current situation and not try to do things the way that we've been doing them, over the years. Let's just try and find new ways of doing things. For example, we've got the ICT now, the fourth industrial revolution, which is something that we haven't really been tapping into, which is something that is now a priority for our district, because we've seen that there is quite a big opportunity in that market for our businesses to be able to operate and flourish.
Thank you, Vuyo. I think we're going to come back to this point because I think it's fundamental, is that the framework of DDN is so enabling, but the practice is actually at the district level. And if the stakeholders are not ready to do the practice, it's not going to happen. So I love it when the two combine and create the actual action of partnering in an aligned way. So I know, Vuyo, you've got other diary constraints, so you'll stay for as long as you can, but please do stay for as long as you can, because I think you've got us started on a perfect note. Thank you very much. I'm sure to my two other lounge guests, Simpiwe and Duma, what she was saying is resonating with you as also a district municipal representative. So let me start with you, Simpiwe, in Amatole. You've also been, Mushwa falls within your municipality. I'm sure there's lots of things happening. What are your reflections on the DDN, and will this be the beginning of something new as opposed to statements of intent? Yeah, you just have to hit it harder. Yeah, you see, I'm right. It's amazing. I apply the same technology to a car that isn't working.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. Good morning to your audience. I think let me echo Mr. Mtetwa and Vuyo's sentiments on this, saying that what is happening now, and it's becoming a norm, that funds, or if fiscal is not enough, wherein we'll be saying the municipalities and departments will always be heavily relying on equitable share. Now, what is happening in the past few years is that the country doesn't have money. So whatever little we have, we need to work together to come together. I'm from a district municipality, which is having a high rate of unemployment. Currently, just before COVID, it was standing at 46%. In Mushwa, which is one of our municipalities, the unemployment rate is on 52.7%. So we have a challenge of changing that status quo. All of us are working towards the betterment of our people, bringing better life and opportunities to our people. Things have been made worse by COVID. Now, more than anything, we need each other. We need to work together. So ETDM, I would say that it has come really at the right time, or we're responding to it at the right time, because I understand that it's been there from the SALCA side. It's been there. So it says that we need to ensure that we work together, we budget together, and we do a Korean and collaborative planning, wherein we don't see each department or working in silos. For instance, what we have done in our space with the Ngqoshwa municipality, coming now closer to the implementation of ETDM, is that we have a beekeeping project wherein we sourced private funders into, and then we said we've got this project that we think can be a success, the beekeeping project. We managed to raise funds from eHarmony Gold. I won't mention it, how much is it, but there is quite a hefty budget that we got from them. And ATM, as the Water Service Authority, engage with the municipality by making a commitment that we'll be doing that. They availed a piece of land and some few millions. And now there is also in the whole picture, there is Innisfil municipality, where in our last visit, we promoted the beekeeping project, and we're visiting beekeepers in Canada. And also towards the implementation plan, Innisfil municipality played a major role. So what I'm trying to say here is that indeed, ETDM, it is a game changer. And for it to be a success, it needs each and every one of us to put their shoulder on wheel and make it work. It can work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simpiwe. I like that thing. You know, more than anything, we need each other now. So there's a straight. We lament COVID as we must, but when we look back, it would have changed things. And sometimes I say, too much money is actually a really bad thing, because it means we can always throw more and more money at the problem. The worse you do, the more money you get, which is something we've seen historically. But now we don't have that money, so we have to work together. So that, I think, is the context has shifted. And as Vuyo was saying, it's come at the right time. There's an alignment of this frame that's been created and what we need. Let's come closer to the district that is just outside the boundaries of this metro. So Duma, what are your reflections? It's just harder. Different, not harder, they say as well. There we go. Okay.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. And good morning to the mayors, councillors that are here, and our colleagues in the hall, and those who are joining us visually, and also to our partners in Canada. I think my colleagues have covered the issue of the development of the district model. I think for us, it's going to be a call to really change our mindset, because the institutions that we work still operate on a separate way and in their manner. Because if immediately you talk about budget, then it becomes a financial matter. Immediately you talk development, it becomes a planning matter. Therefore, it's going to call upon us to start changing the internal culture of working towards one goal.
I think the DDM, while others would say it comes at the right time, but to me, it's about inserting a transformation agenda, because development is dynamic and we're coming from different stage, because we want to achieve what we call a development state. Because in achieving that development state, we are going to allow revolutionary processes that must come in at different times. We are coming and we are very strong in our budget around social welfare state. But how do we begin to assess that, whether it's achieving the quality of life of our people, and also whether it's achieving the livelihood of our people? Because at the end of the day, you can deliver water services on a daily basis, but if the livelihood are not able to change, it's still going to be a problem. Therefore, the narrative must be moving from social welfare to an economic state, development state, where economic development must be at the center. I think that is what we are also projecting at the Tasara Patman District Municipal. For instance, currently, when we are doing our own assessment, out of public investment, about 303 projects in the district, making plus minus 1.8 billion for 2020-21 to 2023. That's a huge public investment coming to the district space. How are we leveraging on that to ensure that we are able to create jobs, we are able to improve the quality of life for our people, and we are able to really do things better? We have a very structured export-orientated agriculture that projects in 2023 a 26.1 billion contribution in the Eastern Cape GDP. How do we then ensure that sector is able to translate, that success is able to translate to real economic development of the district? These are issues that we need to infuse in our development model so that we are able to do the certain things correctly, and we're able to achieve what? Mastering the IGR, really mastering the integration in planning between our public sector, and really mastering the relationship between private sector and government, and then really able to infuse cooperation within ourselves in institutions so that we are able to do things better at a capacity development level. Because at the end of the day, we need to achieve community development. We need to achieve a well-oiled community that be able to participate in democracy in a better way. But economic development should be the driver of the district development to ensure its sustainability. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Duma. This point of changing mindsets, I'm going to come back to it because it's a little bit like we always invite others to change their mindsets, and we remain quite stubborn individually. And I'm almost asking, as we listen to these are such good inputs, but just reflect how hard it is to change your mindset. When was the last time you apologized to a colleague? We're good at telling, not so good at reflecting. And I think this COVID time is asking us to reflect and adjust. I have found apologizing very hard. Even when especially when I thought I was right and I came across as quite offensive. We don't do that. I think I can feel my grandfather, the priest. Yeah, sorry. Sometimes, it's you can't help it. I think there's a reason why this is a white collar today. But yeah, mindset. And, I remember something that the former mayor of Joburg said once, Mayor Parks Tau. He made a statement. He said, "Is capital in the city of Johannesburg on strike?" It was such an interesting statement. I never thought of things like that. But he was basically saying, underlying that, the relationship between government and business in that geographical locality had got bad. And it felt like they had withdrawn. So in each of these municipalities, I think the BIGM experience is teaching us that whatever it takes from business or government or civil society, who is going to humble themselves first to start that reconciliation, to partner? COVID has brought us to that space. And I think there's something to capitalize. I mean, it's a contradiction to capitalize without money, but to capitalize now on the relational capital, as we have seen the reduction in financial capital. let me stop preaching and go to our online congregants. Let me invite Ms. Zimasa Vazi. Are you getting us online?
Yes, Jeremy, I'm here in Pretoria.
Oh, fantastic. You're getting a very warm welcome from the Eastern Cape. I know that you've been doing really interesting work in OR Tambo. Can you just also correct me? I didn't do justice to your organization. I know it's Commonwealth, and then the other words will follow, which you're about to give us. But please give your reflections.
But Jeremy, firstly, before I get to my reflections, I want to first call you to order for Jeremy. I must say this, how could you not know the name of my organization? I am from the Commonwealth Local Government Forum. So please put Jeremy.
I'll never forget it now.
So without taking any more time, but Jeremy, maybe I should first begin with the fact that CLGF, together with the Ministry of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, and also NOSALGA, we have a very long-standing relationship as we've been working together for quite a long time now. So CLGF has been supporting the South African government with within regional and economic development through the Small Towns Regeneration Program, the development of town profiles, the development of guidelines for regional planning and development, and also with South Africa's LED framework and stakeholder engagements with the stakeholder engagements for economic development, particularly focusing on the private sector. Now, with the adoption of the district development model by the South African government, our focus shifted gear, and we started supporting local governments with the implementation of the district development model. So this has indeed been quite an exciting time for us as partners, given the importance of collaboration and cooperation. Collaboration and cooperation, not only with Jeremy between the three spheres of government in South Africa, but I think I must say most importantly with industry stakeholders, with the private sector, and also local communities. CLGF has now been working with a number of municipalities in South Africa. Within the DDM space, it's been primarily Eastern Cape, OR Tambo District Municipality, and also Waterberg District Municipality within Limpopo. So as part of the DDM program, we work together with Umasipala and Salga and Copter with the development of e-bankable business plan for a catalytic project. And in the case of OR Tambo, it was within the waste economy, the circular economy and waste management. And really focus here too has been job creation, gender mainstreaming, youth development, skills development, and of course, which is inclusive economic growth. So we developed that plan. But often what we find, Jeremy, is that we develop all these plans. I mean, South Africa, I think, is very good at developing plans, but we often find challenges with the implementation of these plans. So not too long ago, I think it was in May, we had a very successful investment fair, OR Tambo. So at this fair, we brought together government departments nationally, provincially, and most importantly, we brought industry role players, the private sector. So the purpose of the fair was not only to mobilize resources to see the implementation of our work, but also to obtain industry expertise to ensure successful implementation. I must say, we are excited to announce that at the fair, we received numerous pledges from both the public and also the private sector to contribute towards the development of the circular economy or Tambo. We are now working to follow up with investors on the pledges that they have made. And really for us, what's important is to make this impact within the circular economy Eastern Cape through collaboration, not only with government, but also with industry stakeholders and role players. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zimasa. I'm really interested in the fair you were talking about, because in some ways, that's an indicator of the success of the alignment. If you can actually get it into a bankable project, these catalytic projects, it's whether it gets from the talking to the funding to the doing, the changing of lives. So, Zimasa, these bankable business plans and catalytic programs are really the alignment and collaboration made manifest. So thank you so much for that. And please stay with us now that I have corrected my lack of knowledge around the Commonwealth Local Government Forum. I think if everybody can say it to themselves, Commonwealth Local Government Forum, we'll never forget. Sorry. In fact, it was a good thing I forgot, because now we really remember. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our other online guest is Ms. Joanna Wallace, who is from the Sustainable Seas Trust. And I understand that your work has got a lot to do with the oceans economy, which is obviously a huge resource in this province. So we'd be interested to hear your reflections on this district development model and how you have been engaging with it, and some of your reflections on partnering in this space. So a warm welcome to you, Joanna.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeremy, and thank you for the really great welcome. Yes, everyone, my name is Joanna, and I'm from the Sustainable Seas Trust. And we have a new relationship with SOLGA that we've been working on for a short while, a couple of years. And I'll go into a little bit about what Sustainable Seas Trust do and how we can offer some services to local municipalities. There we go. Thank you so much. So let me get started. Oh, this is my draft presentation. Sorry, Tech, is there any way we can get the other presentation, or I can share the screen?
Yes, if it's easier for you, Joanna, we can give you the co-host status, which you might already have, and then you can share your presentation. I know it can be so nerve-wracking when you see the other version. So we'll take your time and get the version that you're comfortable with.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I've got it ready. So let me just try to see if I have sharing rights.
You have sharing rights, Joanna. Go ahead.
Give me hope. There we go. Joanna, the mayor of Port St. John's is almost ready to sponsor a song if we have problems, which is around.
I mean, that would just be great.
Giving you hope.
Okay. Okay, so sorry, it is just taking its time, as these things do.
I can see, there we go.
Screen, yeah. Sorry,
I can see you sometimes. There we go. You almost clicked that little icon, that's it. Perfect. I think we're all ready.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to get into presenter mode so I can see all my great notes that I've written. Oh, what have I done? How about that?
We're getting a perfect view.
Okay. Great, now that we can all see what we've got going on here. So I'm Joanna, and I'm from the Sustainable Seas Trust. We work in the Nelson Mandela Bay metropolitan region, and we are a charitable trust and an NGO, and as well as a PBO, with a mandate to create networks in the Nelson Mandela Bay area and across Africa that support collaboration in the way of healthier communities, less waste in the environment, and zero plastics to the Sea of Africa. Our main goal, one of our main programs is the Africa Marine Waste Network, with the goal of zero plastics, the seas of Africa. And this is a really great collaborative platform that we've created that helps build open communications and knowledge sharing between industry, civil society, all the while fostering enterprise development within recycling and the circular economy. We have quite an extensive network across Africa. We work with the United Nations and the Nairobi and Abidjan Convention, as well as the Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association. Here, our mandate is to, like I said, to share knowledge and share information, as well as creating open dialogues between key stakeholders within recycling, sustainable waste management, circular economy, as well as ocean conservation. We have 4 primary operational pillars that we use to create change. The first is our research department, which does extensive litter monitoring in cities. We're right now, we're right in the middle of some great litter monitoring in Port Elizabeth Central. We also have our education department, which is about capacity building and skills development. Then we have the communications department, which is responsible for networking and public awareness. And lastly, the economic incentives and enterprise development department, which is the department I work in, which I'll be sharing a little bit more information about. So here's just a brief highlight of our programs. We create educational materials for adults and children, all within the sustainable waste management, ocean conservation, and the circular economy, marine waste littering, on land waste littering, litter monitoring, and recycling value chains. We're also developing an African Guide to Plastics, which will be used as an extensive resource book and translated to multiple African languages, which will be used as a guide for understanding the full life cycle of plastics, from extraction all the way up to what happens to post-consumer waste, plastic waste. So let me tell you a little bit about the economics department. This is where we work directly with SALGA and local municipality. So we have the adult education program, which is responsible for municipal capacity building and working with ward councillors and municipal directors. We usually work to create awareness campaigns on the impact of litter in communities, and we also do citizen science training for litter surveys. We help promote, to build that environmental connection between community members, and to also, while building that environmental connection, facilitate the opportunities within creating small SMEs related, community cooperative related to recycling and the circular economy. Then we have our enterprise development program. As I said, we develop SMEs with small-scale recyclers and economic development programs. We've also done extensive research on the local recycling and value chains within the Nelson Mandela Bay Area and across Africa. Our analysis of these recycling value chain networks is to understand where the gaps and the opportunities are, so that we can better support these gaps and opportunities and plug them with our programming, with our research generation, and with our workshops, so that there can be more recycling and that we can transition towards a circular economy, which benefits everyone. We also support the redevelopment of cooperative buyback centres, and do so with research, with our research in the value chain, as well as with assistance with business planning. So this is where I'd like to pose a question to all these, very influential stakeholders that we have here. How can the circular economy serve your city? Some of the main benefits of a circular economy are obviously job creation. It opens up a whole channel of new jobs available within the circular economy that are based on repurposing waste, repairing products and services, and opportunities for employment that not only have an economic benefit, which is clear, but also like a great benefit for the environment and for people. In a circular city, there's less waste in the environment, there's social upliftment, and there's more innovation in businesses, entrepreneurship, and using technology in a way that's sustainable, sustainable and realistic towards the landscapes that we live in. So I thought here, what I would do is give you a brief introduction into some of our education programs and what those look like. So we're going to go over quickly what the sources of litter are and how litter and plastic waste and waste gets to the ocean and gets into the environment. So sources of litter is where does litter come from? Litter happens when waste is disposed inappropriately, either deliberately or by mistake by an individual or a group, and ends up in the environment. Litter happens when waste is mismanaged, and it can happen through leakage. That's what we call plastic leakage. It can happen through leakage in the environment too, or from illegal dumping, or like I said, just by mistake, and then we get litter. So litter ends up in the environment, and then now we're going to talk about how litter moves into environmental sinks and into the marine environment. So the main agents or pathways of litter often in coastal cities are the wind. The wind blows waste into waterways and into channels, and the waste either stays stuck in those environmental sinks or waterways, or when it rains, the waste gets caught up in the rain, well, in the waterways and transported, by the way, in the waterways through the rain, down to the ocean, or as I said, it gets stuck in the environmental sinks. And then there's, of course, people, like I said, with dumping or lack of information or leakage, that litter and waste ends up in the environment. I think this is quite a common sight, unfortunately, but one we're working towards solving. So now what I wanted to do is I was hoping that we could provide a survey so that we can better understand what the needs are of municipalities to promote circular thinking and circular cities and reduce marine waste. As I said, we've been working with Silver for a couple of years, and we would like to understand how we can better support SOLGA and municipal staff and councillors and other government entities with our programming and capacity building and workshop training. So here is the link for the survey, and I'm also going to pop it into the chat. How do I pop it into the chat? I'm going to have to exit my full screen mode so I can pop it into the chat quickly. Sorry if everyone will just bear with me a moment.
This is 4IR in action.
Yeah, sorry, it's
No, we're learning as you go.
yeah, we are, aren't we? I'm just trying to look for the chat.
And if it's tricky now, you can put it in the chat when you finish your presentation as well, because I think this is something that can be shared beyond even our now, because
Yeah.
I'm sure you brought a sample as possible with this.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is my full presentation. Thank you so much for listening. So yeah, so it's really just very exciting to see how the Sustainable Seas Trust, how we can offer capacity building support and training workshops that can help local municipalities better reach their own mandate, which is to have healthier cities, less waste in the environment, more social upliftment, and more opportunities within local economic development. The circular economy has such great opportunities available for job creation, for gender mainstreaming, for bringing in individuals into the formal economy and into the waste economy. So it's something that we're really excited to carry on building on.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Certainly what struck me about your presentation was, there's almost an orientation of how we approach these challenges. That the problem of waste is the opportunity of job creation as well, and it makes me think about who was it that said it was you, Duma, around changing of mindsets, because and here's a classic example of how do we view this situation? Do we see it as a problem? Oh my goodness, what do we do? Or do we see it as an opportunity which builds more energy as soon as you change the mindset? So I think this is a great example. And, it's also putting into action what Tebogo says about Big M, which is together we can do more. I mean, that kind of captures it all. So thank you so much, Joanna, for that really inspiring presentation. And do put that link in the chat so that people can share that with their municipalities as well. Great. I'm going to ask you all to stay online, because we've now had a great set of inputs around DDN, the partnering, and what we can do about that. And I think the structures are important, but they're not going to make the change. And it's the approach and posture that's adopted. So, Kubeshni, you are still with us. And I know that you are tracking themes here. I want to ask you what is standing out from where you are about what our 5 panelists have shared with us. And I want to invite you to pose a question at the end of your reflection. And I have a few questions that I'd like to ask the guests as well. So I don't know if I don't warn Kubeshni when she's coming in, so she's going to tell me if it's the right time.
I'm good. So Jeremy, but what I find really intriguing about this session, the DDM session happening in the context of Big M, is how some of these concepts, principles, and elements hold hands. So we started with Nkosinati, and we've been talking about partnerships since day one when we started these conferences, and he emphasized this piece of the social compact, going back to that notion of reinforcing the relationships that are central to the DDM. Of course, underpinned, he says, by people development, which we know has been the big piece for Big M, because the emphasis, and it's been said a couple of times, Big M was not about putting funded resources into building something. It was about creating capacity to do, which was seen as being a much more long-lasting legacy piece. Okay. Of course, he emphasized that a critical success factor, one of the critical success factors, are accountability. And we've heard from leadership over and over again how they needed to step in, that oversight role, the connection between the political, the administrative, and the program work has always been a big piece. And then we heard from Alfred, I think it was Alfred and Zoe, Mr. Honono, around Miss Honono, around some of the challenges around coordination, and you rightly say, Jeremy, the opportunity of working in this way has always been present to us, but perhaps has not been, and maybe that's the question that I'd like to ask is what different needs to come into the system to ensure that the DDM is able to actually have this meaningful change that we're hoping it will bring. Connecting, of course, with some of the other themes, and maybe yes.
So I'm gonna invite you to pause right there, because you've given us the question for our second part. I'll come back to you. I want to pick up on what you said. What different do we need to do? And I'm going to start with my in lounge guests. The different, Duma, you used the word revolutionary, which made me think you might have an interesting you might straddle the political administrative interface yourself. Revolutionary, who used the word harmonize? Simpiwe, it was you. So I was thinking, like, what's different? We talk about harmonized, and what's revolutionary for now? We obviously have our revolutionary legacy that we're trying to still chase the elusive developmental state. Maybe we're getting there. But what's revolutionary for now, I think, is interesting, because I would offer a provocative statement. We're a nation of soloists trying to harmonize. We all want to be at the front, playing the main tune. Whereas in fact, what we should be doing is creating the beautiful harmony together. So what is different that's required. I have the privilege of the mayor's right close by in the front row. But it's really hard if I think of a mayor of a district not to be a soloist, because politically one's inclined to want to build political capital. But sometimes you've got to step back and say, let's create the space for others to perform, and let's create a beautiful harmony amongst us. So what is the difference? What is going to make this time round it to work? We've heard that the context is different. We don't have money anymore. So that's not something we can share a lot of unless we get these nice grants from some of the partners, which does come, but not like it used to. So what's different? And let me give you, Nkosinathi, this is radical in itself, is that you're the first anchor to have a second chat. So we are doing things differently now. So what do you think the one thing is that we need to do differently? And I want you to wear your Salga cap. I want you to wear your organizational caps, because it's not what they must do differently. It's what you're going to do differently, having heard what you've heard. Let's start with you.
No, thank you very much, Jeremy. I'm going to be very short because quite a number of concepts are emerging from the discussion, issues of continuity, coordination, sustainability, impact, efficiencies, and agency. But for me, we've spoken a lot about economic transformation. We've spoken a lot about spatial transformation, equity, infrastructure, delivery, quality services, and so forth. But I think we need now to focus on the delivery scorecard. We need to shift our focus from the rhetoric to implementation. So we need to enter the phase of what I call implementation festival and be able to hold each other accountable. The mayor must be able to hold the minister accountable for failure to deliver on functions that are his or her competencies, and vice versa. So that vertical and horizontal accountability is critical. So what we need to focus on now, we've been planning, we've been conceptualizing, we've been theorizing, is really around implementation, tangible implementation. So we need to say who does what must be done, where, who must do that, what resources are going to be made available, and what are the consequences for failure to deliver.
Great. I love this thing of an implementation festival. But I want to infuse something that maybe we don't allow ourselves to do. So we always talk about consequences. Someone's got to take the rap for the non-delivery. When are we allowed to fail? Because in some ways, that's when we really learn. And we're so scared of failing. You know how the AG, I've got a lot of compassion for the Auditor General. But I think in the absence of us doing a lot of things, they become our ultimate citizen. We deliver to the AG. And we're too scared to fail. Therefore, we don't do things that sometimes we might need to. I would be fired if I was a full-time official because I'm saying things that are not right. But I think they're very right. So I love this thing, implementation festival. Let's hear from you, Simpiwe. Once more.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. I think we need to stick to our lane of being administrators and not straddle and found wanting in the lanes of the politicians for this to work. Secondly, is we need to respect those intergovernmental relations sessions that we sit, because that's where we're supposed to be making some of the decisions as senior management in the municipalities. The third thing that we need to do, we can't implement EDDM while in our corners. We need to meet, whether it's quarterly, but we need to have those forums, whether they are KPA aligned, key performance area as by key performance area, but there has to be something that is happening, whether it's quarterly or monthly, depending on the agreement of that particular key performance area. I'll say gurus, but that's what I think we need to do. Thank you.
Stick to our lane. and respect each other and come out of the corners, hey? Was I thinking that you said it, or did you say that? The corner bit. You didn't.
This thing of coming out of not sitting in our corners and do this. Yes,
Yeah,
no, we're
exactly.
not. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's that song? Shine brightly in the corner where you are. Maybe what we should be saying is step out from that corner where you are. We can do a new song. This is the harmony. Step out from the corner where you are. Maybe where's my speaker's not here. I was going to invite her to help us. Okay. Duma, what's revolutionary for now?
I think Nkosinathi introduced the model at DDM because it has to address a problem statement. That's one. For us as district municipalities, we need to be able to define ourselves as bringing value to municipalities. Because municipalities, we as districts do not have spaces. We serve our clients are clear municipalities. District municipality, for instance, has a Dr. Bias Noidem local municipality, which is an amalgamated municipality. If DDM doesn't address the problem of that municipality, definitely DDM will not be a value to that municipality. Local municipalities in the districts are under financial stress. If the DDM is not bringing a solution to that, the DDM will not be sustainable. We depend largely on grants. Our local municipalities' own revenue collection has dropped sharply. If the DDM is not able to bring solutions to that, we will still be a problem. And the DDM will still be another similar other thing. Therefore, what I'm saying is that if at the district level, we're not able to resolve problems of municipalities that are preoccupying municipalities, the DDM would not be a sustainable model. Therefore, we need to come closer to municipalities so that the DDM provides solutions. And we need to be able to arrive at that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Duma. You know, you're reminding us of the challenges, of the stakes, and the good intentions of what the DDM is. But I remember once there was a document written about lessons learned from Project Consolidate. And there was an interview with the municipal manager of Greater Sekhukhune. And he was asked, what advice would you give to other municipalities that are receiving support like this? And he said, you should be quite careful of some of the support because they arrive like Christmas trees and leave with nothing. And I was so struck by reading that because I thought, my goodness, this is a problem. And then Mayor Janda, I remember when I was at Amatola with you, the municipal manager nearly collapsed the program that I had come in to be part of because she said to the funder, unless you can put the funding for this program through the municipality's funding system, we don't want it because it disrupts us. You're asking us to report with your indicators, with your financial system, and it creates so much burden for us. And there's 7 other support programs operating in our municipality. What happens is all we are is reporting to those programs and we're getting distracted. So there's such an art of how you actually lead the support programs rather than follow them. And it's quite a controversial thing I'm saying, but I think that's something that has to get right with the DDM is that the municipalities must lead and tell us what they want and be held accountable. And we fit in to support them, not impose on top of them. I was hearing myself again there. It's a scary thing. Sorry about that. But I like you reminding us of the intent, and we will be judged on the practice this time. We know enough now. So there are things we've got to do different. Let me bring in Zimasa. You hearing things in Pretoria? What do you think the one thing is that we need to do differently, and what you have heard might be appropriate for CLGF?
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. I think firstly, let me start with just linking up with what you're saying here, in that the municipality must lead and the funders come into support. That I definitely agree with, and that has always been the position of CLGF in our work with SALGA and COCTA. I definitely agree with that. In terms of what is different, what is revolutionary, sometimes I think that a lot of things don't need to be revolutionary. A lot of the things that we've been talking about today are common sense. These are the things that we've been talking about for such a long time. So a lot of it now is about co-creation and co-implementation. So in as much as we want the municipality to lead, but we must also remember there's definitely a place for the private sector. There's a place for the municipality and a place for the public sector. These two entities must now strike a balance. They need to work together, co-creation and co-implementation. I think that is my take on this, in that really these days, there are very few things that are revolutionary. Many things are common sense. We've been talking about these things for so many years now. Now it's time for us to implement, to put our money where our mouth is.
Great. Co-creation and co-implementation. And what the Revolutionary Act is to apply common sense.
Yes, yes, that's my position.
Okay. Joanna, you're occupying an interesting role as a partner on the oceans economy, working with SALGA with a particular mandate. Let me be somewhat controversial. In some ways, organizations like yours who've got a really strong mission, it's so frustrated with organizations like ours, government. And you can often come across as having all the answers and telling us how we should act and getting so frustrated with us when we don't. But we know it's much more complex than that. We are navigating very complex systems, societal issues, tensions. So what have you heard from this discussion in terms of this model of partnering? And what do you think the one thing is that from your side, you guys could do perhaps differently or see that needs to be done differently for us to ramp up our collective performance?
Okay, that's a really great question. I think what's so interesting is what was discussed about when it comes to report back to funders when working with municipalities, to leave the onus on municipalities about how that report back, how the monitoring and evaluation and how the implementation goes. I think that as an organization, we at SST often play a role where we try to balance the objectives of the different partners that we work with, as we work with the public sector and the private sector, and often act as a coordinating body between them. So keeping with our own mandate and the agenda of the public sector and the private sector is quite a balancing act. And it's something that we are aware of, that we have this kind of coordinating role between the two different spheres of the industry. So I think that what we try to do at the Sustainable Seas Trust is to balance those different objectives, but still find a route to implement a program or provide capacity building that balances all those objectives, but still sticks to our own mandate, which is quite tough. But it's something that we know is super important, because at the end of the day, I think local municipality is kind of where the buck stops and where the real action happens. So what we would like to be able to do, what we try to prioritize, is to keep our own agenda, but still to be able to give the municipal support in a way that helps municipalities to streamline what they're doing and carry on what they're doing well. And we just want to be able to, like, I wouldn't say fill in the gap, but offer support in places where the support is really needed, while balancing our priorities. So it's a balancing act, I think. But something that can happen with good communication. It's very possible. It's difficult, but it's very possible.
Love that. It's difficult, but very possible. And communication is at the center of it. So thank you very much. We are beginning to come to the end of our first discussion, and I think it's put us in for really useful reflections. I want to just invite you all to remember when you were children, and those of you that had access to public parks, Do you remember those roundabouts that you get onto and you turn around and around and around? And when you get off, you feel so drunk that you get back on to stop that drunken feeling, or to get back to that feeling. It's a little, we've become addicted to that feeling of turning around. And if we look at local government and we actually say, how many of these turnaround programs have we had to survive? Every 2 years, there's a new one. What was the, DDN is one, to be honest. What preceded DDN? Which one? Back to basics. And then I think the next one was going to be beyond the basics, but before that, there was Project Consolidate. Then it started with Masakani. And we've seen these things. That's the one consistency, is that we keep on turning around. But the basics, I'm going back to what Vuyo was saying. Zimasa was saying. She was saying, like, the Revolutionary Act is perhaps to apply our common sense now. Stay in your lane, but get out of your corner. It seems to be what we've got to do. We know enough now to do it how it needs to be done. And I think that this discussion has been great because it's got us on that track of, we've got DDN now. It's a great framework and model. We understand roles and responsibilities. It's not ultimately for an aligned plan. That's a starting point, but there's aligned action and implementation for delivery, with a little bit of space to make some mistakes. That's my personal plea for people, is how do we learn if we don't make mistakes? Can't always go to jail if you don't submit 4 reports, or get fired for not submitting 4 reports. It's crazy. That's why I'm appointed on days, not years. So I can say the things that need to be said, I think. Kubeshni, save me from myself. I'm going to ask you just to make a really short and succinct wrap up of our session, and we're going to then enjoy a tea break.
Jeremy, you know, I wrap up. I think you have hit the nail on the head on so many pieces. I just want to bring James Matsi's piece into the conversation. He says in the chat, the freedom to fail is the most optimal route to innovation. And there's this piece, Jeremy, about failing in service of learning. Yes. And building it into the risk model so that we are able to change the systems. And perhaps, Jeremy, we can think about failing forward. Because oftentimes in this notion of trying to learn, and I mean, we've used this word lessons learned so many times in the last few days. But we really need to come into this so that we don't repeat the mistakes that we've had. And this is such an important lesson going into this new cycle of local government elections, this notion of picking up on the lessons of the previous terms so that we don't have to repeat them again. 2 cents.
Thank you, Kubesh. You know, I'm laughing at what I'm thinking about now, because, you know, even when we design programs, we give ourselves a 10-minute tea break. It never works, but we do it every time. So I'm going to start by being a revolutionary of common sense with myself. I'm going to give you more than 10 minutes for tea, because it takes more time. And when you have your chats, observing social distance, talk about the radicalism of common sense. So we can move, as Kubesh says, let's draw a line in the sand and say, we have learned enough now to get into acting, to be a little bit more compassionate, and to move forward with patience. We're not going to achieve overnight, maybe not even in our lifetimes, what we want to see yesterday, but let's make sure we step forward. And if I knew who was a good singer here, I'd invite them to take the mic and sing Step Out of the Corner Where You Are. Have a great tea break. We are looking at component 3000, partnerships. We've had a great chat on DDN. Masibeti Zandla, Pinda Futi, Viva Partnerships. The third one is always a bonus. Okay, we will see you back here. It's 11:03. I'm going to give you 20 minutes. At 11:25. Oh, am I doing your job, ma'am? I'm seeing the politician's eyes. please, let's just sanitize first, and let me give over to my director here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very much, Jeremy. You nearly took my job, really. If you still remember earlier on, I said, as politicians, when officials are taking other direction, we always have to call them back so that they stay on the line. Otherwise, I agree with you in terms of the minutes that you gave us for ET break, because we at least ahead of the time. But at least can we say 15 minutes instead of 20? If the House agrees with me, we take a 15 minutes break. The time, I think now it's 11:05. So at 20 past, we'll come back. I can even see Umbulelo has got a bead, a headband, and a bead chain. So I agree with Councillor Janda when he said, Usipho, the background of Rondavels. Also now Umbulelo has got that red band, a beaded one. So it really needs us to give them east sides so that they can build their houses and be part of Eastern Cape. You are released for tea. Thank you very much.